There it is. Hi everyone, it's Lyra. So I wanted to make a video to talk about something that is happening in Minnesota right now specifically, but this sort of thing is happening all over the country. And it's a really important issue, and I just wanted to put this out there as a sort of commentary piece and also as support for all of the trans kids who are having to deal with it, and also as an informational resource for all of the policymakers and advocates and all those other things who may be working to make it better. So, what am I talking about? I am talking about high school policies and really all school policies regarding the inclusion and protection of trans athletes. So this is a fairly complicated issue in some respects, but in other respects it's fairly simple. Basically what it comes down to is there's a growing movement amongst educators to try to find ways to make schools safer and more inclusive for trans students, which is phenomenal. And one of the things that they're looking at is getting protections in place for trans students to be able to participate in athletics that correspond to their gender. And this is where, in some respects, things begin to get complicated for all kinds of reasons. I mean, even just off the top of my head, the idea that sports are still segregated by gender at all has its own problems. But if you're going to accept that, then basically you need a place for trans athletes to go. And especially if they've started hormone therapy, it really doesn't make sense for them to, even physiologically, be on the teams where that correspond to their birth assignment. But more importantly, it's not safe for trans students to participate on teams that do not correspond to who they actually are. It is absolutely devastating to have to try to pretend to be something that you're not, just in order to have access to athletics. And athletics are extremely, extremely important to a person's well-being. Being accepted on a team, having a place where you can belong and work hard and prove yourself and be a part of something that's bigger than yourself, it can be so important. And reams and reams of studies show that participation in athletics is a really, really good way to help students feel better about themselves, do better in school, all kinds of amazing things. Trans kids in particular, who are already at an extremely high risk of suicide and other self-destructive behavior because of how hard the world is for us, we need access to this kind of outlet. We need access to this kind of support. Otherwise, it's just nothing but slammed doors everywhere we look. And nobody can really handle that. And that's sort of the issue in a nutshell from my perspective, and I think from most trans students' perspectives. But I did want to take a few moments to address some of the concerns that I know that people bring up. First of all, on a basic level, there's the group of people who simply do not understand what trans people are. They believe that trans people are delusional, that they can't really be the gender that they say they are, anatomy is prime, etc., etc. There's not much I can say to these arguments. These are very tightly held positions. They start from a philosophical assumption that I can't refute because it's a philosophical assumption. And when you start from different philosophical assumptions, you can't really come to an understanding or an agreement. But I'm going to address those kinds of intractable disagreements soon. But I'd like to talk about some of the more fluid ones, because I think that the place where we're most likely to make progress is with parents who aren't sure. Parents, teachers, educators, all those things who have questions, who have uncertainties of how to handle various issues. I'd like to address some of those. One of the ones that comes up most often is this idea that if trans women, trans girls are allowed to participate in student athletics with other girls. Then during communal shower time, oh no, there will be genitals that are different from the other genitals. And oh, by the way, quote unquote, boys will be boys. And therefore problems will ensue. Nobody's really specific about what those problems are going to be. It's just, oh no, there will be problems. I don't really understand this myself, and I apologize for seeming sort of confrontational and dismissive about that, because I do actually want to address whatever those concerns might be. If you're concerned about the whole boys will be boys thing, I would encourage you to remember that trans girls aren't boys. They're girls. They just happen to look like boys. Especially since with these proposed policies, in most states that I'm aware of, particularly in Minnesota, where there's a very large debate happening right now, you can't actually get approved for this kind of protection unless you have had hormonal treatment and or surgery. So either you're not hormonally male anymore, so you wouldn't have that whole raging testosterone thing that people are apparently so afraid of because you'd be on estrogen, or you wouldn't have those genitals at all. So I'm not really sure what people are concerned about there. But what I would say additionally is that if you're really that concerned about teens being able to see each other's genitals, you might want to consider hanging some curtains in the shower. Not too difficult to do, and would actually be a really appreciated privacy measure for pretty much everyone. Ask any educator who's worked with teens. Ask virtually any teen you can. They will tell you, communal shower, not their favorite thing. Showers with curtains would be much nicer, and they would remove the problem completely if you're worried about, oh, I don't want them to see different parts. And if you are worried about that, let's talk seriously here. Okay, I get it. You're a parent. You want to have a say in the sexual education that your child receives. I totally get that. I would absolutely want to be in charge of how I educate my child about their sexuality, and sexuality in general. I think that is an extremely normal feeling, and I totally understand it. The thing is, that is more an issue of your right to comfort, your right to influence. And these are important rights, but I want to ask you to consider how those rights compare to a trans student's right to safety, a trans student's right to a basically decent standard of living, a trans student's right to be accepted for who they are. These are very fundamental rights. I am not trying to say that your right to have a say in what your child learns, when and how, should be undermined in any way. But there are bigger issues at stake here than whether or not your personal values are being upheld at the school you send your child to. And if you are really that concerned about it, if it contradicts your values that profoundly, then there are other safe places that you can send your students, your children to. Trans students don't have any other safe places they can go. Someone has to start making a safe place for us. Your kids are probably already safe pretty much anywhere. At least safer. And as for the things that might make them unsafe, sexual predation, for example, well, you can't blame that on trans people. Sexual predation is everywhere, regardless of gender. And if you have an issue with that, then you need to be talking to the school board about their policies regarding that. How do they handle those issues? If that's what you're worried about, that's the issue you need to be raising. So I sort of hit a few points here. I don't want to go on too terribly much longer because I don't want to be, a big windbag here. But as a trans woman myself, this issue is extraordinarily important to me. I did participate in athletics when I was in high school, and I participated as male, and it was awful. I mean, horrible. I hated myself so much because of it. And the thing is, I needed that outlet. I needed access to these kinds of activities. I couldn't not do it. But I incurred so much suffering because of having to do so as male, because I wasn't. So please, 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 I know it's not comfortable for everyone. I know you're worried about things. We're worried too. Please support these initiatives. Support protection for trans students who have virtually no safe havens. We need it so desperately. I know it's going to make some people uncomfortable, and I am asking you personally, please, consider our physical and emotional safety, our protection from suicide and drugs and trafficking to be of a slightly higher priority than your moral comfort. I know that's a lot to ask, and that's why I'm reaching out so personally and hoping that it will make a difference. And as for the rest of you who are undecided or maybe already on this side, well, you know you have my appreciation and my support. I'll always be here for you, doing my best to spread the word, raise awareness. Please feel free to share this video with anyone who you think could benefit from seeing it, particularly people who have the power to affect decisions like this, policymakers, board members, things like that. As always, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And thanks so much for watching. Take care, guys. Bye.